Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Today we're looking at some new cards which are introduced within the OCG, and this is for the Legendary Monsters pack. The purpose of these cards are they're supposed to be retrains of existing monsters and classics within the original series of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. So the first example is Mystical Elf Mystical Burst Stream. It's a level 4 light attribute spellcaster type effect monster with 800 attack and 2000 defense. You can only use this card's name's first and second effects once per turn each. 1. When a monster your opponent controls activates its effect, and you control a level 5 or higher normal monster. As a quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, negate that effect. 2. During your opponent's battle phase, as a quick effect, you can target one normal monster in either graveyard, special summon it, and if you do, while you control it, monsters your opponent controls must attack it if able. So the idea of this card is it's meant to support your normal type monsters. It's quite unusual. Recently, Konami has come out with a lot of normal based supports. From Dawn of Majesty as well, that's another example, and this is more of them. The first ability helps to just shut down your opponent's monster's effects, but it does require you to have a level 5 or higher normal monster on your field to activate that effect. It does let this card be special summoned through that, but I don't necessarily see the benefit of it outside of, giving yourself a little bit more field presence. The secondary ability is where I think this card actually shines, because if your opponent is in their battle phase, you're able to just instantly summon any normal monster from either graveyard, yours or your opponent's, and then it becomes the attack target. So even if your opponent tries to get rid of this card, they're actually having to get rid of one of your other cards first. So there are some decent normal type monsters out there. You've got things like what's being pictured in the image, Blue Eyes White Dragon. You've got Winged Weaver, which is a fairy type example. You've got Dark Magician, a spellcaster example. And there are some that are quite decent for their attack range, and making them the initial target means your opponent isn't able to get rid of this instantly. I don't know why it's called Mystical Burst Stream, but I have a feeling that it was used by Seto Kaiba. I think there was an episode somewhere within the Duel Monsters tournament, I think this was actually during the finals, where he used this combination either against Yugi or he used it against Maximilian Pegasus to be able to use this ability. I think he understood it from when he initially faced Yugi, how it doesn't have to be the most powerful cards that have the most use, and actually using some of the weaker cards in combination with other cards does provide you with that level of advantage. This is where I think it connects to the storyline. Kaiser Glider Golden Burst is a level 6 light attribute dragon effect monster with 2400 attack and 2200 defense. You can only use this card's name's first effect once per turn. 1. As a quick effect, you contribute one monster. Special summon this card from your hand. 2. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls. This card's attack becomes equal to that monster's until the end of this turn. This is an example of a card where actually I think the retrain on it is probably weaker than the original. From the original Kaiser Glider, basically anything that had the same attack points as it, same stat line as this, of 2400 could not destroy this card in battle. There is actually a spell version of that effect as well that was used in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Yes, this card does have the ability to special summon itself just by tributing a monster, whereas the original Kaiser Glider has to actually be tribute summoned, but it's a 1 tribute requirement. It's not that costly for you, and it basically does the same thing. It just means that you're not eating up your normal summon. The secondary ability just happens on its summon, that it copies the attack stat of one of your opponent's monsters. That's not particularly a big deal unless you're planning to crash into that monster and just wipe them out. It's useful if your opponent has invested lots of resources into bringing that card out to begin with, but otherwise this is definitely one of those examples that's weaker than the original. And the final card is Giltia the D-Knight Soul Spear. It's a level 5 light attribute warrior type effect monster with 1850 attack and 1500 defense. Its effect is you can only use this card's name's third effect once per turn. 1. If you control no monsters, you can normal summon this card without tributing. 2. When this card is normal summoned, you can banish one monster your opponent controls with attack higher than or equal to this card's. And 3. You can discard one card, add one level 7 dark attribute dragon type monster, one level 6 dark attribute machine type monster, or one level 5 water warrior monster from your deck to your hand. This is a very unusual card. Yes, it's supposed to be the attack name of the original Giltia the Dragon Knight, which is actually a fusion monster, so instantly this card is better. That card didn't actually have any effects, this does. The first effect is fine, it's just like it's basically treating this card like a level 4 monster if you happen to have no monsters on your field. At least that way you're not wasting a tribute of a monster. The secondary ability is really useful because when it is normal summoned, it does reward you by banishing one of your opponent's monsters, and it has to be higher or equal to this card's attack, so generally you can get rid of most things your opponent has. It is a targeted effect, so if your opponent has things that are immune to targeting, there goes this effect. But, it's actually very decent, but it also rewards you if you normal summon this card. It doesn't like you to want to special summon it. The third ability happens when it's actually in your hand, and it lets you add certain monsters from your deck to your hand. This is the most confusing part of the effect. I think it's a weird attempt to try and fuse the different sections of Joey Wheeler's deck from Battle City. For example, the level 7 Dark Attribute Dragon, that's Red Eyes Black Dragon, clearly. The level 6 Dark Machine type is Jinzo, which he won from Esperoba in I think it was his first duel in Battle City. And the final option is, I think, his final duel just before he competes in the finals. And that was against Mako Tsunami, and he managed to get his legendary Fisherman card. The thing that confuses me the most, actually, is why this doesn't also include to add one level 7 Earth Attribute Insect type monster, because one of the signature duels he had, alongside the ones I just mentioned, happened to Weevil Underwood, where he has used that card in the past. He used it against Odeon, he's used that in a few other duels, and I don't understand why, of all the cards that had been excluded, that was the example. I don't think this card will ever see that much play, or any play. Just having the specific requirements on any of these effects makes this card instantly not that good. There might be some tech options you can use to actually get things out, and actually this might splash effectively into cards and decks that happen to just get new support that reaches the conditions of any of these effects. Other than that, it's very forgettable. It's a shame. It just needed to be more consistent, and it needed something else to it. Joey's deck needs some consistency. It goes all over the place. Firstly, you focus on having his, normal Red Eyes Black Dragon. You give it some boost cards through Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, you've got Red Eyes Darkness Dragon, and then you've got additional support here, there, and everywhere with some warrior type monsters, trying to fuse those in, some trap cards. I think there's a Red Eyes Black Chain, then you've got the resummoning of the Red Eyes Black Dragons, then you've got the fusion, then you've got the Red Eyes Black Dragoon card, and then it's all over the place. They need to decide how and where Joey's deck is running, and then, there's the one thing I forgot to mention as well, the Hermos subsection of his own archetype as well, which are the fusion cards which fuse his warrior type monsters with the Claw of Hermos to become these fusion warrior cards. It's all a really random mess of cards. Definitely need something to... I don't even think at this point, with how random Joey Wheeler's deck is, that it can actually be made consistent with every section of his cards. You think of things like Rocket Warrior, you think of Red Eyes Black Dragon, Gearfried. You might need to get to a point where you're subsectioning everything into, okay, this is his warrior section, this is his dragon section, this is his random combination from Battle City section, and this is his Claw of Hermos section. That's the only way I think any of these cards can actually work. But enough of me rambling. What do you guys think of these cards? Do you think I'm being overly harsh? Is there anything you particularly like? For me, if I'm going to say any of the ones that I personally liked, is probably the first one. I think it's very historic, and actually it's nice to get some normal type monster support. They definitely need that to actually be consistent in any way. Out of all the three, I think the worst one is actually the middle one, which is the Kaiser glider, just because of the three, it's the only one that actually has a weakened, retrained version, which in itself is very bizarre. But leave your comments down below, whatever you think. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily Yu-Gi-Oh content.